I'm Terry Hooley, the master blaster who plays them faster, and you're listening to the Ireland podcast.
Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Now, how about?
I can hear you.
Oh, nice.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you see this? Nice intro, huh?
Beautiful. Are you good to go? I think I made a mistake in the time. So are you good to go now?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm going into rehearsal. How long were you thinking this would be?
I usually do about an hour.
Oh, we'll see. I maybe have a half hour to 45 minutes. We'll see.
Okay.
Because I have two concerts coming up, so I'm in the middle of practicing.
Yeah.
But I do see a nice... Oh, there's the boys.
I'm trying to tell. Okay, put your hood up as you run by. Put your hood up as you run by. Put your hood up. Come on. I try and keep them private. Yeah, do that. Yeah, good boy. Okay, run by. Okay.
Hi there. I remember you. I was looking at the picture this morning.
Where are you? I've got a special code.
I like that Aladdin Sane cover back there. I have one behind me too.
Right.
I see your Aladdin Sane there, and mine is here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's an original album, the 73. You know, I'm the same age as that album.
Really?
I'm 52 years old.
Wow. Isn't it? It's not 53?
Aladdin Sane, I think was 70. Oh, hold on. Yeah, 73.
73.
Yeah, 52.
That's right. That's right. It's exactly 50. See this picture here below the Aladdin Sane?
Yeah.
That picture of me?
Yeah.
Bowie painted that for me while we were recording in Montreux in Switzerland in 1995. And I was recording, and he had an easel set up not far from me, and he did everyone in the band, and he did 3 of me, but that was one of them.
Wow. And that was the one thing that you saved.
That was the one thing.
From your fire.
It's the one thing.
Wow. What about your passport?
Say again?
What about your passport? Did you get your passport? Or just the picture?
The passport I happened to have in one of the cars, so I was okay with that.
Okay, so you got the picture. That's amazing. I love that story that well, it's a horrible story in that you lost your home and your studio in the fire. That was 2018, is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. The Wolsey fire. I've been doing my homework here. So the Wolsey fire. My goodness. Yeah, so it's such a tragic event.
But did you know that I tell you that there was a stone by the pool that said hope?
Right.
And it was cracked. A third of it got removed, but hope still remained, the word.
Wow.
And that there was a pool that got totally destroyed, but on the pool there was a Buddha sitting there. We still have the Buddha. Buddha was fine.
Yeah.
Then the whole 3 pianos in my studio demolished to nothing. And right next to the piano, on the doorway when you come in the house, was a Jewish mezuzah, which contains the Ten Commandments in it, got a little cracked, but that was restored. How do you figure that?
I don't know, but whenever you talk about the Buddha, I'm thinking about David's final resting place, which is Bali, as far
He
as I know.
loved Bali.
Yeah. So what's the connection there? Do you know?
He just told me he was very peaceful there and spent a lot of time there. It's a place I haven't been, but I feel connected to it. I just don't like driving and flying and moving around. I'm real happy sitting at my piano. It doesn't get better than that, you know?
Yeah.
Go on a podcast and write a piece that's improvised
Yeah.
and then go to my big piano downstairs. This is just a digital one, but it's very good. And then I go downstairs and have the 9-foot concert grand and bang away,
Wow.
prepare for my concerts. The concert is Friday and Saturday, and it's with my grandson Max on drums. He goes by Max Garson, same name as me, and 3 of his young cohorts, all 60 years younger than me.
Wow.
And I open up the show by saying, I don't play with anyone unless they're 60 years younger. And if they're 50 years younger, they're over the hill. You can take that to the bank.
Yeah, yeah. So I suppose better start the podcast. So I've got a method, I've got this line that I use. So if you just bear with me for a second. Hello, welcome to the Ireland podcast. This is Fender Jackson. I am in Galway on the phone to this person. Who are you and what do you do?
My name is Mike Garson. I love playing the piano. Started at 7. I'll be 80 in a few months and I'm still playing. It's that simple.
Yeah. And Mike, you've played with Nine Inch Nails, St. Vincent, Duran Duran, Free Flight, The Smashing Pumpkins, Melissa Auf the Moor, CSS, The Pretty Reckless, and of course David Bowie. And I guess I want to talk about David Bowie particularly today because largely around the reality tour, because he was stationed, forgive the pun, he was stationed in Dublin for 6 weeks whilst you were rehearsing for that tour, which was 23 years ago. And the DVD of that performance was recorded in what is known as The Point. It's now 3 Arena. So I would like to get your sense of what did you and David make of Ireland for those 6 weeks? What did you get up to as well?
I remember my wife, Susan, who doesn't travel with me that often unless something resonates with her. She came with me and we loved the 6 weeks. We stayed at Bono's Hotel. What was that called?
The Clarence Hotel, of course, the Clarence Hotel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was lovely because you could feel all the music in a telepathic kind of a way.
Yeah. And so what was the schedule like? So it was 6 weeks. Was it very tight or did you have time to do some sightseeing?
When I'm in tour or rehearsal mode, I don't do anything but rehearse and then cool out at the hotel. My wife got to walk around, and I love Dublin. It's one of my favorite cities, and I love the people in the country in general more than most other countries. But I've been around the world several times, but I don't think I've seen anything. So someday I'll start just maybe going out. Maybe I like to always play, so maybe do one concert in Dublin and then spend a week with my wife traveling through the country and the beauty of it. So I don't have the kind of memories of that 6 weeks, except that I loved making music and rehearsing with David every night. I'd do anything to do that again now in real time. But, you know, that ship sailed. But his memory and the connection I have to him has not faded. It's increased, actually. And whatever distortions would occur in band dynamics and life they all dissolve, and all you remember is, in my case, the 20 albums I did with him, 400 concerts or more, I don't even know. And those rehearsals were fantastic. And then we did some hilarious gig in a small joint there in Dublin. You remember that?
I don't know. No.
Yeah, they put a gig together to test it out after the 6 weeks. It's a place that holds maybe 300 people. I think I did my own separate concert there with alumni about
Oh, it
six
was
years
Whelan's
ago.
then, probably.
It wasn't the Wheelans, it was another place,
I,
much
I say I was
even.
living in London at that stage, so I never lived in the
Oh,
Republic of Ireland until 2 years ago.
oh,
Yeah, so I lived in North. Yeah, which is where I met you. I met you in 1995 in the Outside Tour.
you did?
My friend was supporting you in the Belfast Hall because Morrissey dropped out of the tour. And what happened was my friend had just released an album and he came around looking. He said, could we borrow your bass amp? I said, why do you want to borrow my bass amp? Oh, because we're supporting David Bowie. So you want to borrow my bass amp because you haven't got one and you're supporting David Bowie. Yeah. So I'm coming with a bass amp, of course. No, no, you can't. But you're borrowing my bass amp to support David Bowie. So I'm coming with the bass amp. You understand? Oh, yeah, you are. So
It was
I came,
a little transactional. You had to have a little something going there. If he's borrowing your bass amp, you're seeing that show.
exactly. So
Or
I,
else no bass amp.
yeah, so I met you and I met Reeves and I was doing the small talk with you. What do you say whenever you're 20 years old and you're talking to a figure like you? I was just like, Aladdin Sane's amazing, so I didn't have much to say back then. I probably still don't, but it was such a memory for me to experience David so close and to see. First of all, he was on the stage, and the song "A Small Plot of Land" started up. And I don't know if you remember, he was wearing these clothes that were the same. It was like a calico, and it was painted just like the same color as the drapes that were hanging down as part of the stage. And he was singing away, and we were all looking around, where is he at? And he was sitting on the drum riser. He had his back to the audience. But because he was camouflaged, we couldn't actually see him. I did not notice him get on the stage. It was amazing.
He's one of the most innovative, freshly creating from nothing out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, from nothing comes something. So he was a cosmic trickster. That's what I call him. He's not a rock and roll star. He was an invader, but not Darth Vader, but an invader of implementing artistic freedom through rock and roll. But he did it in his art. He was a editor for a art magazine. He did it through fashion. He did it through acting in several movies that he did that are beyond beyond. He did it in life. He did it as a husband and a dad. And I always boil back down to the same thing. I miss him.
Mm, yeah. Um, you talked emotionally during the Dublin Bowie Fest about your favorite memory of him. Do you want to share that?
Well, um, people have asked me in the last several years, what's the moment I remember? And it's bizarre because you think, oh, when I played Aladdin Sane or Lady Grinning Soul or when I did Small Plot of Land or Bring Me to Disco King or Strangers When We Meet, or Time or Let's Spend the Night Together. It was none of that. It was my dad passed away. I went to the funeral and we were leaving in 6 hours for Finland, but we had a rehearsal. And I had to get to the rehearsal after the funeral, and I walked in there, and the way he embraced me to this day makes me cry, because it showed his empathy. So as a rock star, you conceal a lot of your real magic, but it sits there embedded in the song and in the lyrics, but it comes off like a tough guy, an exterior, and the world and that kind of shit. But really, that said it all. His hug for me helped to dissolve the pain I was suffering. And my dad, who was my biggest advocate, the only one in the family who really supported my music. My mom was fantastic, but she would like me to have been a doctor. And my wife's parents would have liked me to take over their business. And Susan would have liked more security, however I could have done it. But naturally, they all knew they couldn't control my fate. But my dad, he just was like the wind beneath my wings, and he just he'd be on his deathbed, and this happened twice in New York, and I'd be in the West Coast, and I would tell him I have a show, and he'd be at the show in Arizona, or there was one other place, Arizona or LA. He just would be on the plane, and he'd be complaining an hour before I'm dying.
Wow.
So you don't get that too often from a family member, because most families are dysfunctional. And that's not to say mine isn't, and not to say he was perfect, but he never gave up. And I was playing with a virtuoso clarinet player one time somewhere, and he was at the show, and the clarinet guy's big ego was standing in front of me as I was playing, and I was getting more applause than him, and he didn't like that, and he was blocking me. And my dad goes up to him midway show. He says, "You're blocking my son." Now that's loyalty.
Yeah. Was he a muso? Was he a
He
musician?
played by ear.
Okay. What did he play?
He wrote a song by ear. He came from the 1910, 1920 era, where the music sounded like this for movies. And it was called Cowboys and Indians, and it had a whole vibe to it, and it was always in my head. And Trent Reznor was doing the music for an HBO special called Watchmen. It had 8 series, and he asked me to do the opening. You could see it on HBO, and it's the Watchmen, and it's number 1 in the first 6 minutes, because it takes place in around 1921. I took this melody and twisted it and went left and right, and I wish I could share the royalties with my dad, but it was his piece.
Wow. So I assume you had a piano at the house
Which house?
in your house growing up, whenever you were a kid.
In Brooklyn, where I grew up, there was a little, what do they call it? Small pianos. I don't know. There wasn't even an upright, a console or something. It was very small.
Yeah.
It was, the brand was Lester, Lester. I have no idea if it was famous or not, but it did the job. And then when I hit 12, my parents bought me Knabe, that's Knabe. That was a grand, that was about 5 feet, 4 inches. That was very good. And then in 1968, I was in the Army band, and I would get to live home because I was stationed in Staten Island, and I lived in Brooklyn. It was right over the Verrazano Bridge. And I went in my Army uniform to a piano store, and I said, "I need this piano." It was a Steinway, and it was rebuilt from the 30s, and it was magnificent. It was 6 feet 11 inches. And the guy said, $4,200. I said, "Well, I'm in an Army uniform. I'm serving your country, even though I'm only playing the glockenspiel in parades. So he gave it to me for $3,200, and then I kept it till 1997. I wore it just to the bottom, and I sold it to a piano technician for $7,000. This is 30 years later. He repaired it and sold it 2 weeks later for $20,000.
Wow. Wow.
So Steinways are great instruments, and they hold their own. I used it when I played at the '03 arena last month with the orchestra. It was a Steinway piano.
Yeah.
And while I'm a Yamaha artist the last 35 years, because they support me wherever I go, and I have a piano in my house that's called a disc clavier, which is really a modern day player piano. So I record into it, and then the notes play back like the old fashioned player pianos. But this is like magical in that it captures all the nuances. In the old days, it was kind of like a computer on or off, either loud or soft. They had little white paper scrolling, and there's a hole in it, or not a hole. If the hole was like the 1, that's the note, and the white paper alone was like a 0. So it's like computer technology, but early analog style. But this piano I have records the MIDI data, and it records the audio, and it plays back perfectly. I could then bring it into the computer and edit it, and it's changed my life. And because of it, because I'm an improviser, I just sit down whenever I feel I could push record on. I've literally composed thousands of pieces that would take at least 400 years to notate.
Wow.
If done the old way.
Yeah. So talk to me about your first encounter with David. How did that take place?
I was playing jazz music in New York, and it was always my desire to be a jazz musician, or so I thought. And I was practicing 8 hours a day like a madman, and studying Herbie Hancock and Bill Evans and Art Tatum and Oscar Peterson and Keith Jarrett and Wynton Kelly and Miles Davis, John Coltrane. And I finally landed a gig on 69th Street and Broadway with Dave Liebman, who played with Miles Davis, tenor sax, and we happened to go to high school together. Landed a gig with him and Steve Swallows, a fantastic jazz bass player, and a fantastic drummer named Pete LaRocca, who was like way up there in the top 2 or 3 best jazz drummers at the time in the 60s. And we were in a club, as I said, in 69th and Broadway. 5 people in the club, $5 I made. I was married with a daughter, and I thought, this is not sustainable. So I was walking home, and I said, I think I need to go out with a rock band. 2 days later, David called, and I had no idea who he was.
How did he come across your work?
Through Annette Peacock. Annette Peacock was an avant-garde singer that, believe it or not, I played on her album called I'm the One, and I was playing some crazy avant-garde piano. He already had heard it with Mick Ronson. They went to visit her. They didn't come to America for the Ziggy Stardust tour with the piano player. It was just the Spiders from Mars, Trevor Bolder, Mick Ronson, and Woody Woodmansey. They have no piano player. Why he didn't bring a piano player and he's doing Life on Mars and Changes didn't make any sense to me. And she said, well, he asked her to play in the band, actually, but she had her own career and she's not that skilled as a pianist. She said, you got to use Mike Garson. And I got hired for 8 weeks, and that seemed like fun because now I could support my family, and it was a new experience. I was always open for things. But I liked it so much, and I made a decision to stay for 2 years, which I thought was an immense amount of time. I stayed for 2 years, forgot that I made a decision to stay for 2 years. He went off to do Man Who Fell to Earth. He moved on with other people because I made a decision only to be there for 2 years. I went back to jazz, and he phoned me in 1990, and he got on the phone. He said, "Mike, hi, it's Dave." And I'm thinking, Dave who? I know 15 Daves, and he's laughing. He says, "This is David Bowie." I said, "Oh, when did I speak to you? Yesterday?" He said, "No, it was 18 years ago. You want to come back?" I said, "Of course." And that was it.
So tell us that wonderful story about how you actually auditioned for him.
It's a very well-known story. I was in Brooklyn teaching a piano lesson, and the call came in, and I had to get over there in 20 minutes, and I went there, and there's Mick Ronson sitting at a piano, dressed like he was going on stage at Madison Square Garden. This is a Tuesday night, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? And I'm in jeans and a t-shirt, and he puts the music of Changes on the music stand, and he says, "Play it." And I did something like this. And he said, "You got the gig." That was the fastest audition in history. And I said, "Oh, this is going to be an easy gig." And I was off and running. Is that amazing?
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, what an intro, you know. It just does.
Well, considering on the original, Rick Wakeman just did. That's all he did, which is perfect. But since that was done, and I didn't even know Rick Wakeman, and I didn't know he did the intro, and I didn't know Changes, so I just C major 7, D flat major 7, D minor 7, E flat 7, little glissando. I didn't even get that far.
You know, I play that song. You met my kids there. Every night we pick a song each. They pick one, I pick one, and there's 3 songs in total that I play. I play Changes quite often. One of them picks Changes, or else I pick it. And that intro, I mean, that's a jazz intro. So Bowie was into his jazz long before you came along.
That's what connected us. When we first start talking, you'd think our first conversation would be about Elvis Presley or Lou Reed or Mick Jagger. We talked about Charlie Mingus, bass player. We talked about Stan Kenton, who had a big band. David knew that stuff. He played saxophone.
That's right.
Alto and baritone.
Yeah.
He wanted to be a musician. He told me he just wasn't good enough, and he was good at writing lyrics, and he didn't even want to sing. He wanted to be in the background as a songwriter. He was sort of pushed to the stage, and the rest is history. But he said he didn't even enjoy it, hardly.
I got some great questions here from, I reached out to people on the internet, and Stephen A. Whitby asks, did you base your solo on the title track of Aladdin Sane on how you thought Bowie would play it if he had had your training?
Well, I realized probably 30 years after that solo, which would have been 20 years ago, that I was playing it through Bowie's head. So he's exactly right.
Wow.
What would David do if he had my piano skills?
Okay, so the answer is yes.
Tell him yes. Tell him yes with a capital Y-E-S. Did I think that at the moment? No. What I did at the moment was played a blues solo. So that's the vibe, and I'm playing. He says, "Nah, that's too plain." So I said, well, how about this? He said, "That's better." He said, "But you told me you were in New York City playing crazy avant-garde jazz. That's what you want." And that's when my comment was, "That's exactly why I have no gig Saturday night. Nobody wants to hear that." He said, "Leave that to me, Michael." And then the rest is history.
Wow. How could he pull that off?
What?
How could he pull that off?
He had balls. He had integrity. He reframed rock and roll by allowing me to do that. It was a win for him and it was a win for me. To me, it was just another recording session. I had no idea. I didn't even hear that song except for a few performances for maybe 18 years. It was just a studio date for me in London at Trident Studio. I played well, but the crazy thing is, since the internet came about, what would that be, in the mid-90s or so?
Mm-hmm.
Since the internet came about, there has not been a day that has gone by that I didn't get an email, text, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook about only that solo, only that song. Now, can't count the number of songs I've done and albums I've done and tracks for people, and probably 80 piano tracks for Bowie, no less these hundreds of concerts live. It's the only one anyone gives a about. Go figure. I have no idea. Why? I don't even want to know. But something cracked for people. Something cracked open. Maybe the freedom to be able to express what you feel, even if it doesn't agree with the mainstream. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And how would you break it down musically? How would you describe it?
It has elements of classical, jazz, avant-garde, quotes, rock and roll. That's about it. Anything that I had studied prior, you got to understand, I wouldn't have been accepted in that gig by David and Mick Ronson if I didn't come prepared. That preparation was my prior 20 years of practicing 2, 4, 6, 8 hours a day over and over. So it was all in my head, and whatever was in my head, he forensically figured it out somehow telepathically. And then there's an Aladdin Sane, which captures that part of me. Time, which captures some old style jazz with a twist. Lady Grinning Soul captures all my romantic playing, Rachmaninoff, Liszt, Chopin, and that's about it. You know, I mean, who would have known at the time? I'm a kid in my 20s, and to me it was just a record date, and it was a lot of fun, and I would be touring with him. And it was in January, so I had already toured 8 weeks with him in America, and we were becoming friends. I moved over to London, lived over in England for a few years, and it was a great part of my life. I'd be very happy to go on tour tomorrow again and do it again. With him, other people don't excite me as much, you know. Yeah. I've played for 1,000 singers, 1,000 singers. David is number one. The next one is about 500 light years away, but good. And the one below that is 1,000 light years away, but good. And then the rest kind of suck, you know. But I won't tell them that when I'm there. I'm a very polite mentor, and I'm a mentor, and I help them, and I love playing music with anyone. But this is another level. This is like playing with Moses or something. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions around Aladdin Sane, because why not? You've been answering questions about it for the last 52 years. So I asked you about a section of it that sounds a bit like a piece from Tchaikovsky, and I don't know which piece it is, but if I can sing it, it's do you know the part I'm talking about?
You mentioned it to me when we were talking, and no recollection. And if it happened, which it probably did, because I trust your instincts more than mine, it was just by accident, because I don't even know that piece.
Okay. Okay.
But I can tell you, I quoted Tequila.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's it.
Well, that's Tequila. That came out when I was 14. That's Tequila. That was just a pop song.
Yeah. And why did you
That's
reference
not
that?
that. So that's the one you thought was
Yeah.
Tchaikovsky.
Yes, yes.
Well, yeah, it's time to go back to school and study your literature. Your literature. Not maybe Tequila got stolen from Tchaikovsky, and maybe you're right.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you need to go back to school now.
So that was one quote. Then there was Rhapsody in Blue. That's Gershwin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there was The King and I. That's from The King and I, the Broadway show. And then there was On Broadway. And then there was the crazy stuff. And then there was some Latin stuff. And then there was some crazy notes. That's right in the key, and I go, slip out of the key. And let's face it, it was not me running the ship. It was just flowing through me from God knows where.
So you weren't thinking, oh,
No thinking. You can't think at that speed.
Yeah.
You have to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
And let the music flow
Wow.
through you.
Wow. That's brilliant. I love what you've just done there. It's blown my head. I'm going to go back to school with this one.
Yeah, we're all in school always.
Yeah. So, you're talking about the guidance that he gave you for that, saying, okay, not the blues, not samba or whatever. And then, he gave you some guidance, play some atonal stuff. So did he give you much other guidance for Lady Grinning Soul or Time, for example?
You got to understand, the genius of David was when he hired you, he trusted you. He never micromanaged. So he just gave an overall vision, and I was off and running, or sometimes nothing. I've been with other musicians, great ones, but they have to be in control. They have to play this, do that, do this. I will ask an artist what their vision is, but if they would shut the fuck up and trust me, they're going to get 100%. If they start yakking away, it goes down to 50. If they keep yakking, it's 20. If they don't shut up ever, it's minus 20. And they lost me. And they got their way because their egos were so fucking big. I wanted to tell them to go shove it up their ass. The truth of the matter is, this music that I've practiced 150,000 hours for is a gift to be given. And if I'm channeling it and it's flowing through me, so to speak, that might not even be the right words, but if it's coming through me or out of me, get out of my way, because I'm out of my way. Why are you yakking in my face? If you want your vision, go hire a studio guy who could play note for note your stupid part. I mean, go f yourself is my viewpoint, I hope all this gets edited out or you have fans that are open for it.
I'll just take out the beeps. Don't worry, I'll just add beeps.
There'll be no context. There'll be no sentence. It'll be beep 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 beep.
Oh,
I'd say leave it in unless you're playing it for the Prime Minister.
Okay.
Who's gonna hear this anyway?
Well, anybody who bothers is interested in Ireland, so it's a wide base.
Will they see it or just hear it?
Well, I don't know. I don't often record the video, but I'm recording the video, so maybe I'll put it up too. Yeah,
Might be fun,
it'd be fun. So
You didn't record the piano piece I wrote at the beginning? That was before we went online?
I did record it, but I recorded it only on Zoom and not in my recorder. I pressed that
Still
there.
worth throwing it in.
Yeah, we'll throw it in.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about Outside because it's a fascinating album. And
Which one?
Outside.
Outside. Oh, one of my favorites.
Yeah. It's a fascinating album in that there's a lot of improv in there. Well, you talk to me about the process.
Well, you said it. It was all improv. This is a freaky album that no one really gets except those 3% of the Bowie fans that are a little smarter. It's more than that, which is a great song, by the way. But this is David Bowie coming out of the 80s unhappy that he felt he sold out. He didn't sell out. He just fell into a system that wanted more hits so the record companies could make more money after Let's Dance. But him being a man of integrity knew something was not kosher. So what does he do? Sits me down in the studio in the early 90s and says, Mike, I'm gathering the people who influenced my life the most, the musicians. So I'm calling Brian Eno, Reeves Gabrels, Carlos Alomar, and you. And there was a bass player, Erdal, who was very talented, and we became the band for Outside. He said, we're going to go into a studio that Queen had recorded at with a wonderful producer and engineer and myself, and we're going to improvise for a few weeks every day on 2 Sony 24-track machines attached, so you had 48 tracks. And we're going to just play and play whatever. And then you're going to go home to America, and Brian and I are going to turn them into songs. And that was the case for every song except Motel and Strangers When We Meet, which were written when we got there. But then I added my, let's say, secret sauce. I'm not sure if it's SAUCE or SOURCE.
Yeah.
But it was something that was whatever God-given gift I have. It was sort of whatever comes out. And he's the only artist that has ever fully trusted me. Most think I'm pretty out there and they're scared of me. So they don't call me. Or they call me for one day and then they never call me again because they're scared to death. Because Bowie could handle my wide viewpoint because there was no style I was thinking about. It wasn't rock, it wasn't jazz, it wasn't pop, it wasn't fusion, it wasn't classical, it wasn't avant-garde. It was whatever the fuck I heard in the moment, because life is an improvisation and I play how I feel in any given second if I'm given the opportunity. If I'm reading a chart, whether it's Chopin or my own or pop piece, okay, then there are some rules. I will stick by that and do it. But ultimately, I have to be let free to then do my magic. He got that. And that's why, even though our lifestyles, our heads, our brains, our minds, in so many ways were 180 degrees opposite, when it came to the creative process and thinking out of the box and trusting our instincts, there was no one better or worse that thought just the way I thought or vice versa. And that's why I lasted as the longest standing member. No other reason.
So the improvisations that were built in the Outside recordings, were they, he must have given you charts or something. Okay, you're playing G, you're playing
No charts, nothing.
So how is it structured? How did you all agree to go to certain places?
Okay, so this is a great question. This is why the album is magical. Think of a very big studio and I'm in a booth with the piano. So I'm isolated with headphones. I hear the guitar, I hear the drums. Oh, I left out Sterling Campbell on drums. He was part of it. Great, great, great drummer. And he would say, start playing. So, for example, you know Hart's Filthy Lesson?
Yeah.
and that ended up in the end of the movie Seven as the closing theme. Well, there was no Heart's Filthy Lesson before I started doing and we're just playing, and then in the middle I'm going do crazy, but this is just a jam, and boom, 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 and it's like grooving, and I'm playing all the stuff, all things I normally do, and then they put words and a melody and cut it here and cut it up here and paste it here. And this is with tape. This isn't like Pro Tools. This is tape with a razor blade and old school. And then you get Heart's Filthy Lesson, or I'm Deranged.
Yeah. Wow.
Or with Architalk Eyes.
Yeah, I was listening to this album yesterday. The Voyeur of Utter Destruction is Beauty. You know, it's just like, what an onslaught.
Where does that come? Well, you take Reeves Gabrels, who's got a fucking insane mind, almost as crazy as me. He told me after the tour, when he's younger than me by quite a bit, he told me after that tour, when the tour was over, that when he was 12 years old in high school, he drew a picture of who he wanted to play with when he grew up. It was David Bowie and me.
Oh, wow.
So you get his crazy angle on guitar. You get Carlos, who's about as funky as any guitar player that ever lived. Just amazing. Erdal was perfect pitch. He could play every instrument. Great bass player. Great with keyboards and synths. Sterling, he's like the infrastructure of the Empire State Building. Not fancy, just lays down a beat that's so fat. Very simple. Sometimes almost too simple for me because I'm used to playing with jazz drummers. And also played with Zach Alford a few years before Sterling, and he's a little more loosey-goosey, so I was a little more comfortable with Zach, and they're both fantastic drummers, but that bass drum of Sterl, he's almost egoless when he plays egoless. And so we had a great beat. Sometimes David and Brian Eno do crazy stuff. They put soul music in our headphones of some singer or something and tell us to play against it. And then they remove that and we got whatever we got.
Wow.
And then Brian Eno would leave notes on each of our instruments. Make believe you're a space invader from 3035 and you're doing blah, blah, blah. And my viewpoint was like, go f*** yourself. I'll just play what I want. But he was trying to free us. No one plays freer than me, so I didn't need the command. But it was humorous, and everyone took their role. I got his point, but I would have done it without the note on the piano because that's who I am. I've been improvising since I'm 14, playing the piano since I'm 7. So that's my default.
Yeah. I heard this quote recently. It was from Tom Waits talking about composition. And he said that your hands are your traitors in that they will always bring you back to the same place. Does that apply to you?
Say what he said again.
Your hands are traitors in that they will always bring you back to the same place. In other words, they'll bring you back to the same tricks, the same little...
That's true for him. Mine is a little different. My hands find the right notes based on where I am, who's in the room, who's the audience, who am I playing for? Am I playing for myself? Am I playing for Bowie? Am I playing for 20,000 people? Playing in a jazz club. So that's a higher understanding of music or improvisation. Tom is right for himself, and it makes total sense. But I'm not playing with licks and tricks. I'm not doing that. Can I? Sure. You want Imagine? I can do it, but you better pay me a lot because I don't want to do it, you know. So, so he's right, but mine is way, way expanded. But he's the one who has the hits. I'm just sitting here fucking playing a million notes and enjoying every second of it. So it's no right or wrong. It's just a different angle of the creative process.
And for you, how much of it is just pure instinct? I mean, how much are you thinking like Mixolydian? Okay, I'm going to play Mixolydian over this pattern or whatever, this chord progression.
That's like a kid using Etch-a-Sketch or chalk or playing in a playground when he's 5 years old. For me, what you just said, I hear it all the time, and not to make less of it, I know what a Lydian scale is and a Mixolydian scale. I don't think that at all. Maybe when I learned them, I did, just like you learn how to say, "Where's the bathroom? I'm hungry," you know what I mean? But you don't walk around the rest of your life saying, "Where's the bathroom?" You might say, "Is there a bathroom? Oh, I need a bathroom. Oh," you know what I'm saying? It's like once you get the vocabulary, it's there. If I'm going, I mean, there's 7 modes going just in that alone. If you say, okay, play on Mixolydian, that's all Mixolydian, but I'm not restricted to that. I might want to play Mixolydian, but I'm certainly not going to go, I'll mix it up. Then a week later, I might be going. That's fucking more than Mixolydian. I don't even know what it is. It's mixed up Mike. That's what it is. The mode of eternal insanity.
Brilliant. You know, I was listening to, I actually listened to Earthling yesterday, and then I listened to Outside. And it was strange because what was going through my mind was Outside sounds like the kind of world that Diamond Dogs was warning us against or warning us about. It had arrived, but it sounded like you're finding your feet in your way. Whereas Earthling, you actually sounded like you'd actually known what you were going to do as a band. That's
right. Very good observation. What do you want me to say about it?
Well, just elaborate.
Yeah. Earthling, David got enamored with drum and bass, that style in the 90s. This crazy drum loops that are so fast a drummer can't play it. And then he'd add Zach on top of that with the loops going on, and it was insane. But what he did, which was genius, is he added melody to it. And what was more genius is he had me playing, for example, on one song, Farfisa organ, which is a weird sound on one of the pieces, 7 Years in Tibet. He thought it was the second best solo I played, or third to Aladdin Sane, and it was just bizarre. It was on a Kurzweil synthesizer, and I brought up organ sound. That was a Farfisa, which is an instrument I played in the 60s just for gigs in New York to make a living. But it had like a snake charmer effect, and he loved it. So he had an idea of this great grooves with melody on top, and wherever I played on that album, because I'm not on every track, A Dead Man Walking, if you listen to the last 60 seconds, it's a history of bebop jazz, but in the background. And that's just me just wailing, doing whatever the fuck I wanted over whatever those chords were, which I don't remember to this day. And it was more tonal than as weird as I just played a minute ago, but it was very fluent, but it was influenced by everyone in the room in that space. My fingers, I'm not a machine. So like a concert pianist, let's say they're even great, will go out and they'll play the notes of Chopin and Bach and Beethoven. Listen, doesn't get better than that in terms of composition. But that's not who Mike Garson is. I'm just this freewheeling maniac that just wants to play what he hears. So my fingers are affected by the audience and who's in the room, whether it's me and you or me and Bowie or me and, you know, Glastonbury, 250,000 people. And sometimes when I say I didn't do a good show, I'm really saying something was not aligned with the audience. So I couldn't tone to them. I couldn't find their vibe. They weren't ready to hear me, or I wasn't ready to hear them, something like that. So I'm not a machine because I'm letting, aside from the intros and places where I have to play the melody to keep David in tune and get him in the song, I was the loose cannon. All the other guys were playing everything you're talking about. And my thing would mean if it wasn't in relationship to a locked-in rock beat with a great band. If they were all playing like me, it would be 60s free music and it would sound like shit. So I'm the spoiled baby who could do whatever I want while everyone is holding the ship down. Go figure.
And you say that you don't use, you go by memory, you go by feel a lot whenever you're playing with artists.
I said that. You want me to say it again?
No, you said it. You said it in Dublin. It's just I was surprised that you don't have charts whenever you're playing.
Oh, somebody might give me a chord chart.
Yeah,
I love charts, but on outside there were none.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Changes had chord charts. I had the chords of Lady Grinning Soul and Aladdin Sane. I'm as free as I am. I'm very aware of structure,
Yeah,
and I love form, but that's just as a tool to get on the playing field. Then I look for the 3 pointers and the magic that when you see a basketball player, it looks like he's flying through the air. He looks like he, what are they saying here? Jesus. There's an earthquake warning. You believe that?
really.
I
Wow.
don't feel it yet. Wow. Well, if it happens, I might have to say goodbye. But it's
Well,
quiet now.
do you need to go now? Do you need to go somewhere?
I'm staying aware. Sometimes it spreads further than where the earthquake is, so we'll see.
Where are you now?
I'm in my studio in Calabasas, California.
Do you need to go to a room or something?
I don't know. I can get under the piano if I have to.
Wow.
I'd be more concerned about my wife, but nothing is moving.
Do you want to go check on her?
Maybe it passed. No, I'm watching the computer, just like the phone went off.
Yeah.
If I blow up, you'll have had the last words of Mike Garson. Then you really get a lot of money for the podcast, like 30 cents instead of 10.
Or maybe 25.
So we're maybe. So where were we?
I was going to ask you about, you mentioned in Dublin about a piece that you never played with David because you just, was it Rock and Roll Suicide? And you're looking forward to playing it with Duke Special. Is that correct?
I had said that David never did Lady Grinning Soul live.
Grinning Soul, that's what it was.
Never played it live. So I
Why?
have played it with a few singers.
Why do you think that was?
I never understood why. It's one of his best songs. Either he was done with it, it served its purpose, or it was too high vocally to sing. He didn't want to strain his voice. I should have asked him.
Hmm.
I think the answer would be he's got the point across and he was done with it, moved on. That's David.
Yeah.
Here's where he was braver than me, but I'm starting to get braver now. He never liked to stay in a comfort zone too long. I like the comfort a little longer than him. Like the Ziggy Stardust tour, I could have stood another 6 months. The outside tour, I could have dealt with at least 3 more months. The reality tour that you're talking about, I could have done it another 6 months, and it would have been, but he happened to have a heart attack. So we never finished the tour.
Mm.
We did 113 shows. You were somewhere in Dublin around 50 or 60, so we kept going. But we never finished the biggest tours in Denmark, 80,000 people and all that. That's where we left off. I'm sitting with an incomplete feeling in my gut. We didn't finish the tour and never toured again after that. This is 2004. He died in 2000, I don't know, 16 or 17. So it was incomplete. It's a terrible feeling. I wasn't done. He wasn't done, but he was gun shy. I did a few concerts, just me and him, for a benefit, one with Alicia Keys for, I think, an AIDS benefit or some benefit, and one fashion show where I think we did Life on Mars or Wild as the Wind, I can't remember. But it's just the two of us. And he said, I needed to call you so I could feel safe before I'm ready to play with the band again. But there was not to be. It didn't happen again. I think he did one thing with David Gilmour in London, and that was it. But I basically did, the last show I did with him, we did Changes. Him and Alicia Keys sang it. I played the piano, and Changes was my audition, and Changes was the last thing I did with him, and that's like bookends. Bookends.
Time may change me, but I can't change time.
There you have it. There you have it. I didn't even listen to his lyrics when I was playing for all those 40 years. I was just hearing the music, the tone, the vibe. But boy, those words are prolific. But I didn't hear them. I still don't hear words, whether it's Mary Had a Little Lamb, Happy Birthday, or opera or Bowie. I don't know why. I mean, my grandkids could listen to rap, and I just hear, and they hear every single word, including every curse word. I don't know how they do it. So people are tuned into different things, you see? And I'm tuned into life. I'm tuned into emotion of music. It also is motion, but I'm tuned into the emotion of it. So I'm hearing below the line, I'm hearing below the lyric, I'm hearing below the chord, I'm hearing below the Mixolydian. But you need to go through all these things to get there. So I'm not putting down lyrics, I'm not putting down modes, scales, Mixolydian, Dorian, whatever, chromatic scales, diatonic scales. I use them all. But no different than when you're asking a question and we're going back and forth. You're not thinking, I'm going to say, good day, Mike, how are you in Los Angeles? There's an earthquake, you got nervous, you said you want a heart. You didn't have to write that out. You didn't have, so it's the same when I play. That's my language. I've been playing for 72 years nonstop. If I didn't sound good, I'd be a fucking moron and I'd ask you to shoot me in the head.
Oh, brilliant. Can I ask, this is a question from James Thompson. He was asking about, do you feel at times you should have got, I'm going to say, more writing credits? Because you got writing credits on Outside because of the improvisational nature of the performances or the recordings. So do you think you should have got more writing credits in other pieces? Or how do you feel about that?
Let's put it this way. If it was now, and Aladdin Sane and Time and Diamond Dogs and Sweet Thing Candidate and Aladdin Sane and Lady Grinning Soul, I would get, let's say, 10 or 20% composing credit. Not lyrics and not full composition, because there's David's songs, but I would be more than a piano player, and I'd be much richer right now. I might be talking to you from a castle in Edinburgh, and I might be a snob saying, who the f*** do you think you are talking to me? Fortunately, I was humbled by getting no money and no royalties, and the little royalties on Outside doesn't even get me sushi. Maybe fish and chips in a Dublin store. So there you have it. But then again, when you don't make it that way and didn't get that recognition, which pissed me off at times, it keeps me hungry and going and creating. You get a hit too young, you could get stuck in that and you're fucked for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to hear the hit. I have no hits. I just have random notes that seem to work.
I've got a great question here from, gotta find it, hold on. Yeah, from Stephen Murray. Did he choose his own clothes and stage outfit, or does he have a stylist? He dresses extremely cool. He being you.
Now he's going deep. This is above my pay grade. How would I know? The answer probably is a little both, because he's a visionary, but I used to see amazing people hanging around from Japan and different people, stylists, directors. You know, David was hooked up to everything, but he was the boss. So he had to like it, and he would design certain things, but these guys would take it from there. It's like hiring me to play the piano. He didn't play the piano, but he knew that I could play what he would want, whether it was through his head or just it complemented what he needed.
I want to wrap it up because I'm mindful of the earthquake, etc. So I want to ask you just finally about the Dublin Bowie Fest. I bumped into Tommy Crampton last week in a gig with Gavin Friday. And he says, talking about you, saying, he's a gent. I got so many stories in the car with him and Gail and Mark. Just say hi and hello, and please plug the Dublin Bowie Festival. So what I want to ask you is, what does the Dublin Bowie Festival mean to you?
You know, I give Dublin a lot of credit because it's somehow stood the test of time. 10 years. No other one around the world has done that well. I give a lot of credit to Gerry Leonard for that, being a person who was born in Ireland and a beautiful soul. And thank him for all his help for us, Tommy. And then also, I loved playing this festival because everyone wants to be there. You see, one of my best shows with David Bowie was in some war town that was just come out of a war in the mid-90s. I don't remember where it was. It was somewhere near Russia, but they had just Bosnia or something. They just come through a terrible war, and we played there. That was the most rewarding show I did. Why? After shooting people and seeing people shot and hearing great music, changing people's life. I met somebody in a club when I was playing in London last month who was there, said it totally changed his life. You play in LA or New York, it's fun. It has a good name, Madison Square Garden, the Forum, whatever. But it's like, show me what the fuck you could do, motherfuckers. Show me, prove to us. So we have to go through the audition phase, even David Bowie for the 20 minutes, and then they settle in and realize we're making music. It's not about show off or ego, but big cities, they have million great acts coming in, so it's like they think it's a competition in a basketball game. Art is supposed to be something that is cooperative and collaborative, including the audience in it. So those people, as I like to always say, they can go fuck themselves, you know. So that's why I like playing in Bosnia. So there's your answer there. And Dublin, well, they had their problems with Belfast. I won't get into that. But I was playing, I was living in Belfast and playing for a Chinese singer in a club with a Catholic, a Protestant, and a Jew. I was the Jew. And there were bombs going off in the city in 1975. I was done with Bowie and I needed a gig. It paid $90 a week. So I know no country gets a free pass, but you don't have the war zone thing that I was experiencing. But the people have been through it. And I always teased Gerry Leonard about potatoes when we're talking about Ireland. and we have a common motif. And people say, where do you like to play the most? Well, it's not just the Dublin Festival, it's Dublin in general, whether it was the alumni band where I was the music director, or it was with David Bowie, which is even better, or if I was to come and do a jazz show there, you know. One of my fun things was just that class I did for those lovely people from Ireland that just wanted to be there and hang out with me. I enjoyed that more than the orchestra gig. Why? Because I was able to be myself and no pressure. And who wants to play classical symphony music in the fucking point? You know, you just have to be in a classical hall to hear the beautiful sound of the orchestra. They did the best they can, but it's for a rock place or a basketball game, you know. So being in a little room with 300 people who love what I was saying and me playing for them, that means, you know, more to me. So why do I love the people in Dublin? And my closing line is, they're always drunk. Why shouldn't I? And with that, the mic drop. Good night, folks.
Okay, Mike Garson, I'm going to let you get to your wife and get yourselves safe. Yeah.
I gotta settle the earthquake. I have some techniques for that.
Yeah.
I play some very dissonant chords. I scare the shit out of the rumbling. I go. It stops.
You're very much influenced. I can hear Charlie Chaplin there. I can hear.
It's all in me. It's all in me.
Brilliant. Okay.
Good to see you, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Likewise. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
All right. Send it to me when it's done. I'd love to see it.
Will do. Cheers, Mike. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Say hello to the boys. Your boys, they're great.
Will do. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Ireland podcast, celebrating arguably the coolest island on the planet. If you like what you have heard, we'd love it if you'd subscribe, share with family or friends, or maybe even leave us a positive review. Your support helps guarantee our future. Until next time, let us all celebrate the island!